Yeah, Steve, go for it.
Okay, great. So welcome everybody to the Zoom call, everything about Israel. I just want to thank before we get started the Waze team for their hard work throughout the year. Joby Cavasso, Rini Sutton, and Joy Cohen for their hard work, and of course the Simcha team led by Rabbi Sutton for all their hard work throughout the year, and especially in crisis situations, stepping up to the plate and really being there for our community. So, kol hakavod to everyone involved. Um, October 7th, 2023 is a date that we'll all remember for our entire lives. It was a date that the Jewish people once again were massacred because of our faith. Our country, our homeland was ravaged by savages, um, people breaking into innocent civilians' homes. And, everyone has seen all the clips. So I don't want to go, too detailed into it. But on a personal level, I've been struggling the last couple weeks or the last 10 days. How did this happen? Um, how could there be people in this world that can do such a thing? All the questions that I'm sure everyone has been asking themselves of how is this fathomable? How are we just supposed to go about our daily life knowing what happened? And I think those are all normal questions. And fortunately enough, we have a stupendous panel with us that is experienced in a lot of different fields and will help navigate us, us as a community and us as a Jewish people through these tough times. So before I hand it off, I just want to say, on a personal level, I'm extremely, extremely impressed and extremely proud to be part of such an amazing Syrian community. I think the work we've all done is truly exceptional. I walk out of my house with my head held up high, knowing that I'm a part of such a beautiful community. Whether it's all these different businesses mobilizing together and sending goods and shipments for the soldiers of Eretz Israel, or whether it's people donating money, or people flying to Israel and being on the front lines, or it's people giving their planes and giving their businesses to those that need it from Israel to bring them back to New York, or it's the schools mobilizing and creating all these drives. Young kids, old kids, grandparents, parents, the whole community for the last 10 days has been all hands on deck. And I really, really appreciate, just everything that we have as a community. And I think we should all be so proud that we are a part of such an amazing bunch and great group of people. And that goes for the Syrian community and Klal Yisrael. So that's on a personal level. But I want to now introduce the clinical therapist who's done an amazing job for Simcha and Waze. His name is Dr. Eli Mandelbaum. So, Doctor, please take it away.
Thank you, Stephen. Yes, this has been a very difficult time, I think, for the community, for Am Yisrael, and difficult on multiple levels. But of course, we're at Simcha, we are really trying to work and tend to the mental health needs of the community. And we're so glad to partner with Waze, with a great new young organization to deliver those services. Just say a little bit about Simcha. Stands for the Sephardic Initiative for Mental Health Awareness. And we provide mental health awareness as well as mental health referrals to the community, the Sephardic community. I also want to take this opportunity to offer anyone in the community who is in need of any type of mental health service, whether it's a referral, whether it's a brief support session, we're happy to provide that for you, of course, at no cost. And we will provide that information. We'll put into the chat about how to contact us with that. This is I think, an important event, and there's been many events, I think, in the community and many communities in the Jewish world to try to figure out how do we deal with this? How do we sort of make sense of, as Stephen was saying, this unprecedented, horrific tragedy and the continued realities of being in war with our brothers and sisters fighting in Israel, not too far away. And I think the first we had last week was sort of the first phase, we can call the first stage of the shock, trauma, whatever word I think resonates with you. But we're now almost in the second phase, the second stage, in which we now are trying to live with the realities of war, trying to do what we can to make sense of what we're going through. And so that's what we're going to focus on tonight. And as Stephen said, we have a great panel of speakers who are, seasoned and have the expertise in so many of areas that come up when we are dealing with tragedies like what we've gone through and the difficulties of war. We have Rabbi David Sutton, we have Dr. David Rosemarin, we have Dr. Giva Perlman, and we have Dr. Shlomo Zimmerman. And I'll say a little bit more about them as they come to speak. But first and foremost, we will start with Rabbi David Sutton, who is not only the founder and executive director of Simcha, he's also the rabbi of the Yosef Torah Center, along with Rabbi Yozer. And he has published a number of books. Most recently, I believe it's called The Art of Being You. So I would recommend everyone to get it. So without further ado, Rabbi David Sutton.
As we are going through this, I am not a mental health professional, obviously, and that's not my job here. But what I like to pride myself in is a concept called spirituality and mental health, which means that we can use religion to help us in our mental health struggles. And what are the struggles that are going on now? Again, these are things that I'm hearing in our office. It's feelings of helplessness, feelings of despair. And, there's a situation going on, and what are we doing exactly? And with time, I'm also seeing people's feelings of guilt and shame, like I'm not doing enough. How can I sleep at night when people are suffering like this? How can I go about my regular business when people are suffering like this? So how do we deal with this? How do we use our spiritual resources to deal with these challenges? And if I believe that my actions arouse God's mercy, that's a term that Chazon Ish uses. We have to believe that our actions arouse mercy. What does it mean, our actions arouse mercy? That means every time we pray, every time we give charity, every time we pack a package, every time we say Tehillim, anything that we're doing, we're arousing God's mercy. So we're not just sitting by and doing nothing. And there's a concept we say in our prayers, Tznu Oz L'Elohim, we give strength to God. And to understand that all the acts that we do have an impact, we don't know, we can't see what we're doing. I just want to share with you one story that happened during one of the wars in Israel, where the Mir Yeshiva was in a bomb shelter, and a bomb had a direct hit, which would have blown up the entire building. And the bomb landed on the building and did not go off. And everyone was petrified when they heard the bomb land. And Reb Chaim Shmulevitz heard a lady whose husband had left her many years before. And she said right before the bomb hit, I forgive him. I forgive him. And Reb Chaim Shmulevitz said, who knows if this lady's forgiving her husband for what he had done to her brought about the saving of the entire yeshiva. And I've heard currently that there are people that haven't spoken to each other for 10 years that made up with each other, because this is what we have to do during these times. And one last point, an important thing that we can do, when we feel, it causes God to feel. When we feel the pain of others, it causes God to feel. We see that by Moshe Rabbeinu. When Moshe Rabbeinu went out to his brothers, everyone else, and felt everyone else's pain, God felt the pain. And this is an important thing that we can do. It's called Noseh Ba'ol. We can carry the load with them. How do we carry the load with them? That, like I've said in other classes, Rebbetzin Cutler, during the Second World War, didn't put sugar in her tea. The Chafetz Chaim wouldn't sleep on a pillow. We're not going to shut down. We're not going to fast, but we can keep them in mind when we're doing things. And the little things that we do like that arouses God's mercy. That's why we shouldn't be feeling feelings of guilt and shame, because we're doing what we can do. And anything past that, those feelings of guilt and shame, that's the Yetzer Hara coming in, trying to beat us up and bring us down. We have to, like Stephen said, we have to go through this with our head high, in a positive note, and believe in what we're doing. And Bezrat Hashem, this will bring the end to this horrible situation. Dr. Mandel.
for those words of inspiration. I also wanted to encourage people, if they have any questions, if they would like, they can put those questions in the chat, and if we have time at the end of the event, we will try to respond to them. Next, I want to introduce Dr. Rosmarin. He is the author of a new book called Thriving with Anxiety: 9 Tools to Make Your Anxiety Work for You. He is an associate professor at Harvard Medical School, program director at McLean Hospital, and founder of Center for Anxiety. He is an international expert on spirituality and mental health, whose work has been featured in Scientific American, the Boston Globe, the Wall Street Journal, and the New York Times. We will also put in his contact information in the chat as well. So without further ado, Dr. Rosmarin.
Thank you very much. Can everyone hear me okay? Great. So small technical issue up front. Almost everyone has their screens off. We're all in this together. So if you're able to turn your screens on, even if you're driving, even if you're walking, wherever you are, I think it'd be great just to see a show of who is actually here. Otherwise, then I get all anxious, like maybe it's a bunch of bots, or, people don't really exist. I'm kidding about that last piece. All right.
I'm trying to turn on my video, and it says the host disabled it.
Well, I can't help you there.
What do you mean?
So we can.
I will enable it. I will enable it. Go ahead.
The host will take care of that one.
Disabled it. Yeah.
Yeah. So hopefully video's on and audio off. All right. I am not going to say anything to make you less anxious. I'm not going to recommend a single tool, no tricks, no tips to reduce the intense feelings of anxiety that we're all feeling. I have a different recommendation entirely. I believe that the recommendation is better than any anti-anxiety strategy or medication that you might have. We have to change our relationship with anxiety. This crisis is only the latest message that we need to change our approach to dealing with anxiety entirely. We need a completely new approach. If you zoom back, what we typically do is incessantly seek to be anxiety-free. We even talk about anxiety as a disease. We value happiness, equanimity, we value peace, we want to be happy all the time. And we're very quick to pathologize, to say that something's a disorder or disease when it doesn't give us emotional satisfaction or happiness. If you go to a doctor today, there were actually federal recommendations that came out over the summer that every PCP, every primary care physician should screen for anxiety. And if you report anything more than a little bit of anxiety, that is a medical cause for you to get a prescription medication today, for you to walk out with Xanax in your hand. Now, on the one hand, this makes sense, right? Because who doesn't want to feel calm? Who doesn't want to feel more happy? Who doesn't want to get rid of their anxiety? Who doesn't want to get rid of their sadness and reduce our emotional pain? But on the other hand, we have this incessant quest for emotional peace that has increased the prevalence and severity of anxiety en masse. The moment we feel anxious, the moment our kids feel anxious, we catastrophize. We say something's medically wrong, they are broken, we are broken, everything is, gone to wherever it's gone. We view anxiety, we see this, it's dangerous, it's weak, why doesn't everyone else feel this way? And we get caught in this vicious cycle, because the minute we start to feel anxious, we perceive the anxiety as a threat. So neurobiologically, when you perceive anything as a threat, you're going to have adrenaline dumping into your bloodstream. Adrenaline will pump out from your adrenal glands, sitting on top of your kidneys, perched, ready for you to perceive threat. And if you see your anxiety as a threat, you're going to get a shot of adrenaline. Guess what that does to your anxiety? It'll make it worse. The physical sensations, the heart rate increasing, restricted breathing, muscle tension, stomach upset, tingling in your extremities. All of that gets worse because you just got more adrenaline. And then the more you have those symptoms, those sensations, the more you think, oh, now something's really wrong with me. And that's the cycle. It's a cascade. This is the main reason, I believe that this is the main reason why we have an anxiety epidemic today. Our culture has turned anxiety into something to fear. And the moment we feel anxious, we take this nosedive into the abyss of distress. I am telling you something tonight that is very critical to know, that anxiety is normal. It is not a disease. It's not dangerous. It's not problematic. If you're worried, concerned, apprehensive, have disquietude, panic once in a while, that's expected. The current crisis in Israel is horrific. It's horrific, but it's just one example. You all know what happened, right? We all know what happened. 1,400 now, innocent Jews, grandmothers, babies, heinous atrocities against humanity. Atrocities that even the New York Times, even the New York Times recently said are so heinous that the worst governments today would never perpetrate them. I couldn't believe when I saw that. An open call for a day of rage against Jews around the world on Friday. So yeah, anti-Semitism is alive and well, in case we didn't know. Now this intricate, dangerous ground invasion, attacks in the West Bank, attacks in Lebanon, Iran. I mean, Mayor Adams said it best. We are not all right. We are not all right. So if you're upset and your kids are upset, then consider the alternative for just a minute. Would you really be better off if you didn't feel apprehensive, considering everything that's going on? Would you prefer to really be less anxious? The only other option seems to be an ostrich and just to pretend that everything is fine. So if you are seeking strategies to feel less anxious and for your kids to feel less anxious, stop. You're going the wrong direction. If I give you every tool that I've learned over the last 20 years of doing research, of doing clinical work, it wouldn't be enough. It wouldn't be enough. Even before this, it wouldn't be enough. I think anxiety is something that can help us to actually function better. I get it. Nobody likes to feel anxious. I don't like feeling anxious. You don't like feeling anxious. It's uncomfortable, very uncomfortable. But once we accept that anxiety is going to be part of our life, there are many opportunities that we can use this for. I believe anxiety can deepen our emotional connection with others. Firstly, my anxious patients tend to be more in tune with others' feelings, because they know what it's like. They've been in the depths of despair and they see other people's facial expressions, other people's voice intonations. They hear them. They hear the language. They're tuned into their body language. A heightened capacity for empathy can, not always is, but can be enhanced through anxiety. Because if we've felt distressed, it's easier to recognize, appreciate, and respond to the struggles and pain points of others. And relatedly, if we want to supercharge any relationship, speak about what you're afraid of. Talk about your anxieties, especially the men, by the way, and especially the Syrian men, by the way. You have feelings too, admit it, and talk about what's on your mind. Your vulnerabilities. Most times, many times, I should say, we pull back, right? We start to feel anxious and we pull back. Might even drink something, try to get the feelings down, squelch them, certainly not talk about it. It just makes it worse. Lean into the anxiety, use it. Don't distract yourself from it. Speak about it. I'm not a rabbi, but Rabbi Sutton, I'm sure, will tell us. Daiga b'lev ish, what does the Gemara say? Yasichena, tell it to someone. Use your anxiety to connect with someone else. Take your pain and rely on others. It doesn't have to be everyone. It doesn't have to be on your Facebook. It doesn't have to be in social media. But, you know, if you just look in the Torah, we have, you know, what's sitting Shiva? We're essentially in mourning now. What's sitting Shiva? Being surrounded by your community to process your grief and speaking about your feelings. In the current crisis, I am a very strong proponent. People need time to talk. Talk about what's on your mind. At least with one or two other people. It doesn't have to be with everyone. And not in a shallow way. Really get your feelings out there. I feel scared. I feel angry. I feel sad. I feel however it is. Use that language and see how you can deepen your emotional connection and your intimacy with other people. There's something very special that happens when we support each other in times of crisis. But that only happens when we actually experience the crisis in the presence of each other. The goal here, again, I'm not telling you to feel less anxious. Exactly on the contrary. Take the anxiety, embrace your feelings, and use it to connect. I'll give you one other strategy. Harness the anxiety for spiritual growth. Rabbi Sutton talked to us before about how spirituality can help you with your anxiety. I'm going to tell you the other way. Your anxiety can help you with your spirituality. Now, according to psychological science, the main cause of anxiety is that when we can't tolerate uncertain things, when we need to be in control and we need to know what's going to happen. If you're able to accept the unknown, you're not going to be as anxious. And that's exactly why we're so anxious today, because Israel has extremely sophisticated, technologically advanced, right? A border fence that didn't stop anyone. The hostage crisis, unresolvable without significant casualties, it seems. It's so challenging to accept that our sense of material security and safety, it was shattered. If you're not anxious now, you're probably not tuned in to what's going on. Spiritually speaking, though, the current crisis is highlighting something that we all know in our hearts. We all know in our hearts this. That yes, we have to do our best. And yes, you have to put your best foot forward. But at the end of the day, we're very small and we're very vulnerable. There is so much more that we don't know and that we cannot control than what we can. The Vilna Gaon, one of the greatest rabbis of the last millennium, at least in the Ashkenazi world, taught us that a field must be plowed before seeds can be planted. If you just put seeds on a field that's not plowed, they'll blow away in the wind. You have to plow it. And so too, the heart's shell must be broken with intense emotions, hargashos, before ruchnius, before spirituality can take root. He similarly stated that the mainstay of prayer, the ikar tefillah, is tears, dema'ot. Over the past week, I've been crying my eyes out. I've been crying my eyes out because I have a very palpable sense that ultimately I'm a very small person. And I need God. I just need him to help me. And yes, I'm going to put my best foot forward. And yes, I'm not going to do anything stupid. But at the end of the day, we all need him. If I shied away from the anxiety right now, I'd be missing out on the spiritual opportunity to embrace my small place in the universe and to recognize my limit as a human being and to make spiritual meaning out of this crisis. Now, that's the opportunity. And that's what I think we need to do. I think we need to lean into our anxiety. I think we need to use it. And when we do, we see that there's a power here. There's something amazing here to keep us connected to others and to keep us connected to Hashem. Let's take the opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rossman, good dear friend of mine. If anybody wants on the chat, he just put out a new book. The link is there. And I think everyone would gain from it, especially in these times that we're in. Dr. Ellie, you're on.
Yes, thank you also, Dr. Osmarin, for those, insightful words and for your vulnerability. I think it should be a sort of an example for all of us what leaning into, our fears, our anxieties, how it can allow us to be more connected, to the people that we need to connect to during these difficult times. So thank you for your words and your vulnerability. I wanted to introduce Dr. Akiba Perlman. Is
Oh no.
lecturer on topics of abuse, addiction, trauma, and fellow traveler for those suffering in silence. He has educated more than 1,000 from social workers from our community and is currently serving as professor at Wirtz Wallace School of Social Work. He is the clinical
Anxiety stuff.
wellness center, a clinic which serves the Hasidic community in Williamsburg. He maintains a practice on Long Island where he resides with his wife Tamar and children. Dr. Perlman.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Rosemarin. It was really, anytime I'm in the presence of men who know how to cry, I feel like I'm at home, especially in moments like this. And I really appreciate you asking people to turn on their screens, largely because this is a moment, like you were saying, of togetherness, of unity. And I think we need to see one another. We need to encounter one another. We need to take a brief moment to experience what it's like to be a part of this beautiful people, to be a part of a nation that we rise up when there's a moment of struggle, there's a moment of loss. We use that as an opportunity to grow, to discover something new within ourselves. And being here with you all is a dear honor. It reminds me of a great contrast. I think it was my first or second day of internship in my training to become a therapist. I was working in a locked psychiatric unit on Long Island, Hillside Hospital, and 9/11 happened, and the towers are coming down. And I remember the experience and observing it from the inside and the outside, like seeing how people were responding, see what it means to be a person who's struggling to begin with, and then to encounter something tragic like that. And the one thing I noticed very quickly is that most of the people, most of the patients that were there, it immediately became about them. It became about their inner feelings. They weren't necessarily leaning into what was happening. They were trying to shield themselves and protect themselves from the new reality that just set upon the whole universe at that particular moment. And the contrast of that moment where literally they were throwing out Xanax and Ativan at everybody because they were just having a really hard time. But looking at our people and our response, we go through a tragedy, we go through something where we're in the middle of it. When you talk about trauma is something that you almost always reflect on later on and say, how did an experience impact me? How did it affect me? Because I couldn't truly integrate it into my system. But over here in this particular moment, we're in the thick of that trauma. Yet to see our response, to see us as a nation come together, support one another, do everything we possibly can to provide a camaraderie, to provide a friendship, to provide vests. I even had a client the other day, literally, they're trying to ship tanks to Eretz Yisrael. They needed a particular type of vehicle. And he's working on it with some other friends. We're talking about millions of dollars, and they're literally working on it. They're trying to find a way to get a particular vehicle to the other side of the world, and they're this close to doing it. And I truly believe, as I sit here today, that they'll get it done. So it's just a moment to say that, yes, we're in the thick of something. We're in the midst and the grips of a struggle, but it's wonderful to be here with you because it represents what we are as a people. We come together when we're in a state of struggle, and we find a way to rally behind one another and give each other strength. And your presence gives me a great deal of strength, and I imagine everybody else who's here as well. And something to know, I like that Dr. Roseman was saying, I think today for the first time I felt all cried out. I started virtually every appointment I had all week with, I apologize in advance. I'm here with you. My heart's open to you right now. But at the same time, I'm also with my people, and I'm also with my nephews that are on the front line, about to make their way into who knows what they're going to have to encounter in that experience. May God watch over them. And my children, my boys who are learning in Eretz Yisrael, and they're there and they want to be there and they want to fight. Their way of fighting is saying, I'm in this land and I'm learning with my people, and it's my way of giving back. And that's our people. But the one thing we need to know, that there's a range of emotions and that they're all okay. Let's just start with that. We go through experiences of fear. We go through anxiety. We go through the unknown. And just to allow ourselves to know that it's okay to be in such a space. And we know Chazal says, like Lakol Zman Ve'es is a time for everything. There's even a time for rage. There's a time for anger. There's a time for fighting. There's a time for love and peace as well. And this is a time for all of the above. And we need to join our people in that experience by being right there. And it's a frightening moment for all of us. But we know in general, when life gets really frightening and scary, we tend to have two distinct reactions. One is what we call anxiety. Dr. Rosemarin was talking about it, where we're primarily facing the unknown. It's a fear of what might happen next, the possibility of additional suffering and loss of life. And anxiety is to a great deal an experience of uncertainty. It's unknown and our desire to shield ourselves from the unknown. Another reaction that we have to adversity in moments like this, we speak about trauma, where we're needing to integrate a new reality. Up until this moment, right before this happened, we lived, obviously we know that certain realities exist in the world, but we live with some degree of safety and security. We try to create that for ourselves. And it's important that we create that for ourselves. We need that, not only for us, but also for our families and our children. But when you have a moment like this, where there's a new experience that we can't thoroughly or fully integrate into our system, it sort of goes into overload. And trauma is loosely defined as an experience that you can't fully integrate into your system. One way or another, it's beyond you. And then you have that lingering impact of that. And when you think about most of us, what we've seen, we've all seen things in the past week or so that we can't unsee. And it's something to really consider, that you have experiences that it's so far beyond us. It's so profound. It's so distant from anything that we know, anything we'd want to know, that when the dust settles and we have to think about how are we going to integrate those memories or what we saw into our lives, it might be really hard for a lot of us. We're going to talk about a little bit of the research shortly on that. And I know, but not only the videos that we see, but the experiences that we're having. I happen to be a big fan of a therapist. He's actually not a therapist, he's a doctor, Dr. Gabor Mate from Canada. And he's someone who's informed so much of the way I see the world. He's had a profound impact on me as a person. I've reached out to him a few times seeking guidance and perspective. And a good friend of mine sent me a video of Gabor speaking about this particular interaction. And obviously, unfortunately, he was a survivor of the Holocaust himself, but his feelings towards the state of Israel and their reaction and towards our people are largely negative. Beliefs that I have a very hard time joining and seeing. And here I am trying to integrate, even that on a basic level. How do you make sense of the world that you wanted to see, and all of a sudden you're encountering it in a very different way, and trying to make sense of that reality? So what do we do with this trauma that we're experiencing? How do we ultimately shield ourselves from it? I wanted to speak about two particular studies. Maybe we'll throw in a third if we have point. It's ironic that this study really comes out of Israel. A lot of the PTSD studies come out of Israel, primarily because it's an entire nation living in trauma. So anyone over a certain age could generally speaking qualify for some of the symptoms of PTSD when you're dealing with things like, bombers, and certainly an experience like this. But they had a study, which I think that the points that we could extrapolate from the study are things that we could take a moment to think about, where they had soldiers in the army, after they experienced some type of crisis, they experienced their own danger, their own harm, physical harm, or the harm of someone that's a part of their battalion. So they have an opportunity that the army gives them two different options. They say, you could either stay close to your group. You don't have to serve it. You don't have to fight at this moment, but you're going to stay on the base. You're going to stay with your unit, whatever we want to call it. Or you have the opportunity to go to a hotel, go to a spa, take a moment, collect yourself, gather yourself, and be in the experience of what we would consider some degree of healing. And I think for most of us, after we go through a hard time, we experience something rough, we think about that idea of, I want to disappear from life a little, I want to go away, pamper myself, rejuvenate, discover myself. But they followed these people for an extended period of time, and they wanted to see which group of people did better. And overwhelmingly, the group that did better were the group that chose to stay with their unit. They chose to stay with their team. The primary reason why they did better is because they stayed and they engaged and they connected and they did what we're doing right now. We're in a state of struggle. Yet we're choosing to say, I'm not going to isolate. I'm not going to be alone. I'm going to lean in and connect to the people around me. They got to process it. They had a chance to mourn with their brothers. And primarily, they remained in the fight. They remained a part of the experience of giving and doing and being a part of something that was beyond them. I know this past Friday night, we have all these conflicting emotions that we're battling, what we hear and what we experience, and what the world that I have neighbors that I'm not sure if I could trust. And that's a terrible experience to have. And I remember I was going to Friday night to process a little bit. I walked over to my sister and my brother-in-law, and we laughed and we cried and we disagreed. But at the end, it was just a deep embrace, and we both acknowledged to one another, like, we just needed this. We needed this experience to be here together because it's us engaging in the moment. There's a story. I have a sister out in the Gush. It's her son. It's her son that is serving on the front lines. It's her son-in-law as well. One son is just so brave. These are just kids. They're little kids. And they're so brave, saying, I need to do what I could do for my people. And they don't hesitate and they don't pause. And that too is something for us to learn from. But my sister is one of the tougher people in the world that I know. What she could handle, what she could internalize is just beyond me. And she's been a part of the Chevra Kadisha in Eretz Yisrael for many years, her and her husband. And she was called upon to do Tahara with many of the Mason, many of our sisters. She's primarily working with women. And at some point she was describing to me what she was seeing, what she was experiencing. And I, at some point, said, please, I'm not going to be able to unhear this at some point. So I'll be with you in the experience, but I can't continue to hear the gory details of what it is that you're experiencing on a daily basis. But what she turned to me afterwards and she said, I want you to know, Kivi, I could handle this. For whatever reason, Hashem gave me the strength, the ability. And by doing this, I actually feel like I'm contributing, I'm giving back, I'm doing something. So I think the lesson we take away from this research, from the lived experience of this moment, is do, connect, raise money, do whatever you can to give to others. Use this as a moment to expand your heart, expand your ability to engage in this moment and not run from it. There was another piece of research. It's slightly not fully contradictory, but a little bit different from this idea. But it's research that emerged after 9/11, where they looked at who were the people that really ended up having the PTSD symptoms later, really struggling with what it is that they saw and they experienced. And what they found is that when people spent a great deal of time, and I think we have a need to do this, we want to make sense of what's happening around us. So we try to observe, we try to watch things, we listen, we're incessantly looking at the news, and it gives us some degree of power, of mastery over the unknown that we're living in this moment. And what they found is that people who spent a great deal of time looking at graphic imagery and saturating themselves in that experience, they were more likely than another group that didn't do that to experience symptoms of PTSD afterwards. And I think it's, again, there's overload. When you saturate yourself in an experience, it sort of leads to some form of overdose where your body can't internalize it. Like we said before, trauma is loosely defined as an inability to internalize what's happening to us, and we can't process it. And when you take all this information and you overload your system with all of it, then ultimately it's just we overload our whole system, and it becomes a really hard time. We struggle with integrating that. And we need to be slow. We need to take it slow with what we see, with what we interact with, and not overload our system, because those extra images, the extra information could be really hard to integrate, even in the moment, but certainly in the future as well. I just want to share, I think it's important, and there's a lot of guilt with this. Here, being in America, there are many books written on what it was like to be an American during the time of the Holocaust, where they experienced, when they found out what was happening, they largely didn't know. At least the Germans, they were secretive a little bit. They had some degree of shame with what it is that they were doing, as opposed to the enemy today, that they have no shame. They want to send it out all over the world and let everybody know what it is that they're doing. But we need to find a way to be okay with our humanity in this moment, to say, yes, I still need to have dinner at home. I still need to be in a relationship with my loved ones, with my family and my children. And we have to fight off some of those feelings of guilt that we might have, that we're not in that fight, we're not in that same place. But at the very same time, we need to live, and we need to create an environment that is comfortable for our kids so they feel like they could ultimately communicate with us. I just want to end with one story about my sister again. She was doing a Tahara the other day, and they have a room. I guess it's prepared for people. They know the emotional overload that they go through. And she's doing this Tahara, and at some point she had to take a little bit of a break. Every once in a while, she was just breaking down emotionally. So they have a room where you could go and recollect yourself again. And she walks into that room, and there's another woman who's sitting there, and she sees a stack of pizza boxes. And her immediate reaction is pizza, like what we're thinking about food and we're eating. And then she looks to the other side of the room and she sees there's a woman who's also doing Tahara, eating a slice of pizza. And the woman, I guess, saw in her face, she saw in her reaction, in her eyes, her discontent or her distaste for what she was observing in that moment. And the woman like turned to her and she said, I feel your judgment and I get where it's coming from. I too am struggling in this way. But at the same time, they took away so much from us. They hurt us so deeply. We still need to eat. And if we are eating, we still need to find a way to enjoy what we're eating. That's our job. We need to live, but we connect and we give and we contribute and we continue to give back in the best way possible. And before I just turn it over, I think it's really important. We need to always remember that our kids are always observing us. Whether or not we're communicating with them directly, they're always observing our reactions, and we need to find a way to give them a platform where they could begin to express their inner world, a safe place for them to let us know what they're experiencing, what they're going through. And aside from that, if you're having a really hard time, it's important to show them mourning, what it means to be in a state of struggle. But if you're having like a really challenging moment where you're not connected to yourself and we're overwhelmed, take a moment. They don't necessarily need to see every experience that we have, because it certainly will overwhelm them. Give them an opportunity to express themselves in a safe, compassionate environment that truly understands them. And so give them an opportunity to be. But I can't tell you what it is for me to look at everyone's face here and to feel connected to my people, to our people, and to know that we're not alone in this moment. We're together and we're strong and we're contributing and we're giving back, and our faith is deepening. And that's our role in this particular moment. And it's an honor, a dear, dear honor to do it beside all of you. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Doctor.
Thank you, Dr. Probyn.
If anybody wants to chat questions to myself, or I think Dr. Mandelbaum, you can, and we will forward them to at the end to the final speaker.
Yes, so it's the final speaker is Dr. Shlomi Zimmerman. He will be responding to, I believe, some questions that already have been posed to Waze, and so we've gotten these questions through Waze and Steve Nazarek, so he will be responding to those. But just to introduce Dr. Zimmerman, he is a licensed psychologist who founded and directs Child and Adult Psychological Services, which is a multidisciplinary group of mental health practice. He's also the director of the Rabbinical Clinical Training Program at Simha. He's the author of the book From Boys to Men, Guiding Our Sons and Students in the Ways of Kedusha. He's a renowned speaker, consultant for many nonprofits, child development, education, abuse prevention, and trauma. He's also the chair of Amudim's advisory board and chair of Magen New York's clinical advisory board. And he's also a little bit about Dr. Zimmerman. He also co-founded Congregation Sons of Israel, where he served as president of Gabe for 12 years. His hobbies include reading, falling asleep while watching documentaries. He and his wife live in Queens and are the parents of 5 unique and precocious children. Dr. Zimmerman.
Unmute.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mandelbaum. Is the format, are you sending me in questions? Am I going with the previous one sent? How would you like me
Right
to?
now, I think go with the previous one sent, and if as anyone sends me some, I'll send them to you.
Okay. So one of the first questions that came in was, how can I stay aware of what's going on while also taking care of my own well-being? And I think it's something that we're all grappling with. And I think the second half of the question is really the compass. First, start with your own well-being. You know, how do you do? Are you what we call an attender who needs a lot of information? Are you a distractor? You do better when you don't see so much. You have to know yourself and your system. And you have to do a deep dive internally to figure out, what am I doing and why? There's a tremendous human need to feel like we heard other speakers speak about a sense of control, but it's really a pseudo sense of control. I'm not the head of the IDF forces, but you know, from my early check-ins with the news, you would think that I need every moment-to-moment updates because like I'm controlling soldiers on the field, when the truth is, what am I doing? Why do I need all this information? What's happening? Oh, I'm feeling somewhat out of control. I'm feeling like I need to know what's going on. It gives me some sense that I refreshed the page and I got the latest update. But the truth is, I have no control. Nothing is changing because of my looking or watching. If anything, I'm either getting distressed, or what we don't talk about much is when you look through a lot, especially very disturbing things, sometimes you'll get overwhelmed. The flip side, though, is you can become very calloused and disconnected. When we see a lot of things that we can't process and we don't slow down, we actually disconnect ourselves. And that is a very scary process as well, because on one hand, we're here because we want to be, as the rabbi said, noseh b'ol. We want to attach to the feelings. But the flip side of that is sometimes when we're doing this, we're actually pulling ourselves further and further away. I had a very disturbing session earlier this week where actually one of my clients who's extremely anxious was actually in Israel. And one of the things he was relatively calm about, though, was when he told me that he was, you know, seeing a lot of the imagery, it had just reminded him of playing Call of Duty. And it's a video game that's quite graphic. And he had been so exposed to violent imagery that didn't cause any anxiety, because it's just, I've been bombarded by this stimuli. And it's a very, very delicate balance and a very tricky thing, that our eyes are what allow us to apprehend the world. And on some level, that's our means. As the rabbi quoted, Moshe Rabbeinu himself was living in Paro's palace. He was okay, but it says he went outside by Yar B'Sivlotam. He went to see their suffering. And some of the rabbis asked, like, you know, if you're growing up in Hitler's mansion, what do you have to see? You know there's a Holocaust, you see it day in, day out, but what happened? In order to see, he didn't need just his eyes. It says, Nasan Eina V'Libo Lios Meitzer Aleim. He put in his eyes and his heart to feel their distress. So sometimes we use our eyes and then we connect deeply to ourselves. We connect deeply and we put our heart into it, and we're connecting. Many times, if we just use our eyes without putting our heart there, we're actually disconnecting ourselves, and we're exposing ourselves to horror, and either we're going to get overwhelmed or disconnected. So we need to really figure out, I want to stay involved. I want to know, okay, how often do you really need to see the news for that? And what kind of news do you need to see to satisfy that? But take care of your well-being. And as you heard Dr. Rossmarin and Dr. Perlman talk about, the goal isn't necessarily that I should be okay. We're not okay. Now, sometimes we need, as Rabbi Sutton said, to not put in that spoonful of sugar into our tea just to even remind us. And sometimes we need to connect and we need to feel with, but in a healthy way, where we're bonding and we sense the pain, but not to try to feel the pain. Sometimes we seek out this horror as if, oh, they're feeling overwhelmed in catastrophe, I want to feel that. That's not what a healthy empathy and support is, right? The story, as Rabbi Sutton said, is putting the tea is to help you see it's not all the same. But my goal isn't to feel overwhelmed. Our brothers and sisters in Israel don't gain anything by us feeling overwhelmed, PTSD, or stressed out. They gain tremendously when we have some connection and compassion and we're a unit. And we're doing something to demonstrate that on an emotional level. And then obviously when we're turning it, like we heard, practically into something where we're helping, whether that is spiritually. My audio is choppy. Not much I can do about that. If is my audio still lousy?
Yeah,
We hear you.
it's a little choppy, but it's okay. We hear you.
We hear you.
Okay. If it goes bad, I'll use a different device. You'll let me know. So the crucial piece there is, I want to feel it and do something constructive. And I think one of the incredible things that we're seeing is people channeling, instead of being defeated, knocked down, depressed, we're all getting up in our own way and part of the battle, whether that's saying something in Tehillim, whether that's sending a donation. And for many people, we have to remember this, that part of the battle is they're trying to terrorize us and disrupt our lives. And so a lot of times we want to do something for Israel, but we have to remember we all have our responsibilities, and they come first and foremost to our immediate family. And sometimes you putting away your phone and sitting down and playing Lego with your kid is the best thing you can do for the war. Why? Because it's exactly what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to do. This little child who's home, who hasn't had somebody to play with, who senses that all the adults are tense and frustrated, needs somebody to sit down and play Lego. And when you do that, as Rabbi Sutton said, that causes compassion on high. And there are so many videos and other things going around, and that's what so many of the soldiers want us. They want the chizuk. They want us to live our lives. They want us to go forward. And that's the real way that Jews and really healthy people throughout history have always done this. We fully embrace and acknowledge all the tragedy and all the feelings. And we heard about grieving and mourning and loss, but it's always with the focus on going forward, and we rebuild. And I assume most of us here are either grandchildren or great-grandchildren of those who either went, in the Syrian community through expulsions through countless Middle Eastern countries, including what happened in Syria, and those of us on the Ashkenazi side, whether it was the Holocaust or the communists, were here. Unfortunately, we know post-traumatic growth in our bones, in our DNA, most importantly in our soul. And we can continue to pick ourselves up and go forward. And if you look at what Klal Yisrael has been doing over the last 10 days, there's a reason that there's one nation in this world that's called Klal Yisrael. There's no people that can handle stress and pain and torment like us, and we just need to keep doing that. Second question that came in was, for those of us who were there for the holiday, how can we move past the trauma of the experiences? And I think that even that same thing that Dr. Ross Marin said, is sometimes we want to move past. You don't move past trauma. It's not like it just goes away and it's done and it's in the rearview mirror. A healthy person integrates their experience. You feel it, you experience it, but you don't hold it tight. You allow yourself to experience it fully. And you do something and you share that, as you heard. And for some of us, you journal and you write about that. You talk about it, you paint about that, you sing about that. You find some way of allowing it to hit you and move through you, not get stuck in you. And then what you're able to do is take it with you. And some other studies, Dr. Perlman talked about a few of them, but some that lead to post-traumatic growth are when we look at an experience and we can identify, in what ways am I safe now? In what ways can I be safe? Can I live my life? And we can remind ourselves and ground ourselves in the here and now that thankfully those of us here are quite safe. But one thing Dr. Ross Marin really hit on is that, especially for those of us as Jews, when we just try to hold on to a sense of safety and security, I have my beautiful home, maybe one in Brooklyn, maybe one in Deal. I have a security system, I have cameras, the Israeli army has border fences and the best technology in the world. That's a pseudo sense. And then when it gets pulled out from under us, sometimes our whole world collapses. And one of the things that we have to our advantage, that you have to use this in a healthy way, is a sense of when we treat anxiety, we accept the possibilities of bad things happening. So for normal people, They have to accept, yeah, the world happens. We can accept that, but know that nothing is random. Everything is divinely crafted for us. And that while we're small, as you heard Dr. Rossner so eloquently said, on one hand, I can feel so small and so tiny. But if I can really tap into that smallness and let go of my ego and what I put together to hold a sense of control and can say, nothing happens to me that HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't want, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't allow. If we can tap into that for ourselves and our children, we can give over a sense. We don't have to be so afraid. And you saw some of these troops who are about to go into, as Dr. Perlman said, something that unfathomable, they have no idea. And they're singing, Mishima Amin Lo Mifached. They're not scared, not because they're stupid and foolish, and they don't think that there's going to be booby traps and close combat and get shot at and who knows what. They're attached to a higher mission. And one of the things that we talk about moving past trauma, as Jews, we integrate trauma and we don't move past, we grow. And we take that and we say, I have a higher mission. However, I look at some of these 18-year-old kids who are going on the front lines with smiles on their faces. And I'm like, oh gosh, I'm stressed. I have so many talks I have to give this week. What the heck? Because they're tapped into a mission from on high. They're going much bigger. They sense I'm needed. I have a purpose. I'm small, but I'm part of the most important puzzle in the world to bring light into the dark places. I'm here. And that the more we tap into that, we have a mission. It's much bigger than us. I'm a small integral piece in the biggest mission, God's mission, to bring light into the dark places, to fight evil. That can really help us propel us forward. And rather than feeling small and shriveling, we can actually open ourselves and expand and grow. The third question that was posed to me is, I guess, a very human one. It's, when will this end? And even after it does, how can we move on emotionally? And I can just send somebody sending that, you know, I can empathize with the humanity. We all want to know, when will it end? And I certainly, one thing I tell people, that they don't give you Ruach HaKodesh or Nevuah in graduate school, that much I can attest to. And no humans know when and how this will end. And I think that's the hardship, where again, we're trying to get a sense of control. And as you heard, we have to embrace the fact that's not my role. That's for God. What is my role? What can I do? Even after it does, how can we move on emotionally? I think it's a similar thing. I think so often the natural human instinct is to try to put something behind us. Somebody told her, Moshe Weinberger said, you see the unity, you see the camaraderie, you see the love, you see the connection, you see the davening, the learning. Don't let Mashiach slip away. I don't think it's about moving past. I think that would be an epic tragedy for the Jewish people if we just moved past this. We've had too many times in our history where we moved past, and maybe we didn't take those lessons. And I think it's crucial that we make a pivot here. Rabbi Yisrael Meir Lau, who was the chief Ashkenazi rabbi in Israel, former chief rabbi, himself a Holocaust survivor, said many years ago, tragically, as Jews, we know very well how to die together. It's about time we learn how to live together. I think what we're seeing this week is the beginnings of that. And eerily similarly, the Kloisenberger Rebbe, who lost his wife and 11 children in the Holocaust, he said something incredible. He said there's one thing he misses about the Holocaust. He says that when they were on the death marches, everybody's head was shaved. There was no hair. You had no idea if somebody they were kippah wearing, they weren't kippah wearing, they had payas, no payas, Litvish payas, Hasidish payas. They were all there in unity. And he says on those marches, the only thing wasn't matter what kind of Jew. You're Syrian, you're Ashkenaz, you're Sfarad, you're from here, from there. Every single Jew huddled close to another one, held them tight, tried to share their warmth so that together they can get through that march. And even after the war, and even after rebuilding this community and setting up San Vaniero Hospital and everything he did, he missed that. This is an opportunity for us not to move past. We always want to move upwards. You heard it from Dr. Perlman, you heard it from Dr. Rossman, you heard it from Rabbi Sutton. We're seeing our truth. We're compared to an olive. Unfortunately, when you squeeze us is when you get the best out of us. We don't do so great sometimes when we live in the lap of luxury and comfort and we're flying our private jets to our vacations. But we don't always see the best of us. We have to take from these experiences, this is the best of us. Look around what you saw this week. In response to tragedy and horror, where they're parading the pictures to the media, where people are supporting absolute terrorism, barbarism that is unfathomable. What are we doing? We're lighting up the world in every way, shape, or form, with beauty, with light, with empathy, with compassion, with spirituality, with connection to ourselves, connection to others, connection to God. Now is our time to be the light unto the nations. We can't put our heads in the sand and pretend there isn't a darkness that is unfathomable. A lot of times we try to be secure. We say, no, it's all good. And we get into, they're misunderstood. No, no, no. God created evil, darkness. And he put us into evil and darkness, which is brutally hard. To shine light, to be a light. And when we do that in the darkness, then Hashem acts as our shadow, and he will do that to us and hopefully to the world. And we'll experience the ultimate light. Dr. Mandelman, you're sending in a question.
Yeah,
I think
we've got a number of questions. Unfortunately, we don't have the time to answer all of them. So I guess we'll end with one final question. One that I can say that I've gotten a lot from my own clients, my own practice. I've gotten from clients at Simcha, that people, I'll read the question verbatim. I feel ashamed for struggling with my regular stuff, while there are those people in Israel who are dealing with so much bigger things. And, I know something that we are all aware of in the field is how during times of crisis, often the things that we're already struggling with are becoming exacerbated. And so how, to sort of speak to maybe those thoughts and feelings of shame.
I think it dovetails with exactly what I was just saying. God doesn't need angels. He has plenty of them on high. He created us not just with darkness in the world, not just Hamas darkness. He created us with this Yetzer Hara, darkness, evil. There's blackness inside. I don't have to shy away from it. I don't have to run. I can know that that's exactly why I'm here. I'm here to have smallness. I'm here to have hatred. I'm here to have jealousy. I'm here to have anger and frustration. And then the same way we're talking about a little tehillim, a little donation, a little love. Right? I'm supposed to do the same thing in turn. Embrace the darkness. Don't run from your darkness. Know who created your darkness. We just read in Bereshit. Hashem said, keep hope when he created the Yetzer Hara. Why? Because it's the way we become godlike. If we were just good, there's no morality in that. There's no courage in that. There's no growth. You're stagnant. You're an angel, but angels don't grow. And they are further from God than we are. What makes us godly, what makes us the light of the nations, is because in me, I have absolute darkness. The goal of the Yetzer Hara is to make me feel guilty and ashamed of that. The real goal is to integrate that fully, embrace it, say, but I'm not going to fall prey. And even if I fell prey 5 minutes ago, Now I have a chance. I always take one tiny step towards the light, towards the positive. Embrace all of your humanness. Embrace every aspect of it. When you're feeling like you're doing something small, when you're feeling you're involved in something petty, accept it, don't fight it, and turn towards where can I grow? Where can I be a little bit bigger, a little bit more filled with light, a little bit more connected, a little bit more honest, a little bit more kind, a little bit more compassionate? A lot of times, guess what? That's got to start internally. Because a lot of it is beat yourself up. Okay, look what kind of Jew you are. You're so disconnected. You don't have enough compassion, enough feeling. There are people dropping dead, babies, this, that, and the other thing. And look at you. You're busy with whether your coffee was hot enough from Crawford's or not. The human, I have that. And I also simultaneously have this love and connection in my heart. And this again showed us the depths of that. Why do I care? Why do I want to feel attached to people 6,000 miles away who I have no connection to? No, because I feel it in my essence. They're my brothers, they're my sisters. We're one people with one mission. And so the more we actually embrace our humanness, that's what we're here for. And when the Kloisenberger Rebbe was saying what he missed, he wasn't saying, I can't wait now that everyone's going to be Haredi. When Rabbi Shlomo Meir Lau was saying that we know how to die together, it wasn't some epiphany, wow, we're all going to look the same, white hat, black hat, we'd have an initial that way. But we're going to be a family. We're going to be connected. We're going to say, you're my brother and sister no matter what. I'm going to be connected with all of my darkness. I'm going to connect to you with your darkness. And let's grow and share some warmth. Let's share some comfort. Let's share some compassion and empathy and support. And let's go bring light to the world. Let's go show the world. What does it mean to be God's chosen people? Yet we're chosen for a brutally difficult mission, harder than the Gaza mission. We are chosen to bring light into the darkest places, to be filled with darkness and light, and to integrate that fully. If we do our little steps, which again is only the way it looks down here. You say, oh, so I didn't put sugar in my coffee, or I didn't do that extra thing, or I said a little tehillim for Chayal. It's small. You don't realize precisely because of all the darkness internally, when you do that, you have no idea what light it creates on high. You have no idea what light it spreads through the world. You have no idea what it means for the world to see that in response to barbarism. What are the Jews doing? Look, there isn't a place that will accept anybody from Gaza. Where 2 million refugees, who's taking them? Nobody. We have Jews trying to figure out how to get a tank to Israel, you heard Dr. Perlman say. Right? We're sending supplies, we're sending everything. We would embrace, the Plaza Hotel was rented out so that Jews from the South could fill. Right? We're doing everything in our power. Nobody will take a Gazan in. Look at the contrast. You're not small. You're not insignificant. You're a small piece of a puzzle. But this, as Ray Weinberger said, Deborah, we're tasting Mashiach. Don't let him slip away. Don't feel insignificant. Don't let it slip away. Your davening, your learning, your tzedakah, your chesed, your mothering, your nurturing, your connection, your optimism, your hope, your absolute conviction not to fall prey to terror, to smallness, but to be big, to tap into on high. I'm a soldier. I'm a soldier in the most important army in the world. And my general is God. And he created me and knows every aspect of my humanness. He loves my humanness. He embraces my humanness. He wants me to love and embrace my humanness and the humanness of all those around us. And in Yetz Hashem, when we do that and we continue to spread that light, we're going to experience the ultimate light with the coming of Mashiach Tzidkenu B'Mehera Yameinu. Amen.
Thank you, Dr. Zimmerman, for that really powerful ending. I want to thank everyone who joined us here tonight. Rabbi Sutton, Stephen Azrak for partnering us with the Ways organization, Dr. Rosmarin, Dr. Perlman, Dr. Zimmerman. I guess just some, just to sort of put it all together.
Dr. Ellie, I just want to make a thank you to our office manager, or Ava Greenberger, for all her hard work today and the whole week setting up this beautiful event.
Yes, thank you. She's often behind the scenes of everything that happens, at Simha. So yes, thank you, Hava. I also want to just reiterate, we posted the Simha information. If anyone wants to connect with us, we're happy again to connect you with any mental health service. In addition to that, we are also offering consultations for support, for any type of help that you need during this very difficult time. I think something that was touched on a number of times is, two mistakes, I'll call it two normal mistakes that people often make during difficult times. One is they judge themselves, they attack themselves. They think that they're doing something wrong, that they shouldn't be feeling the way that they're feeling. One beautiful line that I've heard from a number of people is that there's no abnormal reaction to an abnormal situation. This is not a normal situation. Any response you have is okay. Don't judge yourself. Be kind to yourself. The other mistake that people make is in times of difficulty, we turn away. We turn within. We may isolate. We might withdraw. Again, it's a normal reaction. And what many of the speakers have shared tonight is to do the other thing, to lean into it, to connect, to use what you've experienced as a way to feel more together and to share the burden, to share the pain, and that ultimately will lead to not just the processing of the event, but also to greater connection and hopefully to the coming of Mashiach. With that, I want to end and thank you again. And this recording will be available on our website, which again is I posted the information simahealth.org. Thank you again, everyone, and have a good night. Be safe.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very interesting.
Thank you.
Thanks.